Hello, everyone. Thanks for watching. This presentation is just going to walk through the format of the campaign and what the next steps are so that we can get playing. So basically, I'm going to be explaining what I mean when I say West Marches, which is going to be the format of play. Then I'll discuss how it's going to apply in this specific game. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps, best practices, so on and so forth. I'm going to try and make this not boring. So first off, what are the West Marches and what is the philosophy behind it? Well, it comes from a very specific context. Game designer Ben Robbins, who made this game Microscope, which I have played with some of y'all, I believe. It's a world building game. It's one of the best games out there. So Robbins has legit cred. I'm recording this live without a script. And he was running a game with around 12 players with different and competing schedules, dealing with his own projects, and kind of running into a lot of issues with that while trying to play D&D. And in normal Dungeons and Dragons, the split in responsibilities can be a little bit unbalanced. So, the game master, prepares their sessions, they plan the overarching plot, they respond to player interests, do scheduling, and handle the mechanics. Whereas the players really just have to show up and play characters that match the tone of the campaign. And so, what did Ben do to solve both this problem and the problem that he was running into with his big group? Well, he set up a game that he called the West Marches. That was the name of his campaign. The characters were stationed in a city on the border of a pretty standard fantasy world, where beyond the border of the country that they were in is the unexplored West Marches. And every single session, the players would go out into the setting and explore it in one way or another, pursuing their own goals. So, for example, if on the first session they had a random encounter where they met a witch at a little house, the next session they might say, I really want to go check out the witch and her house. I thought I heard some screaming. When I rolled my wisdom check, you said that I heard some screaming in the house, but we didn't deal with it at the time because we weren't high level enough. But now I've got this anti-magic sword. Maybe we could do something about it. And sometimes that would go well, sometimes it would be disastrous, sometimes you'd get distracted by a whole new thing. Maybe on the first session you run into the witch, and even though it wasn't your goal, you get sucked into that little side story, and that's also great and interesting. In between sessions, players would share what they learned, because only 4 or 5 people are playing with a 15-person, 12-person group. They would make plans, they'd theorize about the setting, and then together, they would decide what to do next. Maybe one player really wants to check out the witch. Maybe another player really wants to keep on exploring the first dungeon they were already at. And once people set goals, they would just recruit everybody else to play with them. And they'd pick a play time based on the GM's posted availability. So the GM is not planning when the session is going to happen per se. And this really splits out the responsibilities a lot more evenly. So the GM is going to prepare for sessions based off of the player's goals. They're going to respond to the player's interests, and they're going to facilitate the game's mechanics. But the players are going to still come with their character and try and match the tone of the campaign, handle the scheduling, and really make the campaign driven by their own character's goals. And this creates new forms of play for both the PCs and the GM, where for the players, it really puts them in the driver's seat, allowing them to shape the world and shape the story based off of what is most interesting to them. It creates this new form of interesting communication where you only have some of the information available to you, and you're not seeing the whole picture every single time. And whenever you run into an issue, and whenever you have a session, you go back into the chat and talk about it with the other players, and all of a sudden you get new insights, new connections, ideas, plans. Sometimes you find out that there was a plot line where there was a hint at it in one area, a hint at the other area and things start clicking. You get this really exciting way of engaging with the setting that isn't normally happening in a D&D game. It also makes the world feel so much bigger because there are other agents active in the setting that you don't see in every single time you're playing. And it lets the players work on this big collaborative project, whatever the project is in the setting, while focusing on what interests them the most, right? Oh, I don't really care about the witch. I don't think I'm going to play that session. I really want to go back to that dungeon. Does anyone want to do that with me? And for the game master, making this sort of change will help free up time for me to focus on running a really dynamic and interesting setting and responding to what y'all are up to in fun ways. It also lets me plan special sessions, which is one of the things that I like most in GMing. So that might be major world events where every once in a while I might take the reins and suggest a session because something terrible is happening down south. It also lets me plan two special sorts of sessions that I do that doesn't happen in most types of campaigns, and often I don't have the time to plan for because of the extra responsibilities that I usually have. And that's backstory games, where we'll pick a non-D&D style game to explore one of the characters' backstory. So that might mean that, if Jim is playing Arthax, the flame god, we might see when Arthax first became a Godbound. And that player who plays them will run that character, and everybody else can play a different character from their backstory. And then the other type of session that I really like to do, that this will give me an opportunity for, is alternate universe games, where essentially we write fan fiction about our own game. So in the past, for example, I was running a game about these hardened supernatural criminals. And we ended up playing a fan fiction game where all of the characters were put into a high school setting in the vein of Twilight or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And we got to see them in this totally other, very funny, very wonderful context. It's an absolute blast. And so people who are interested, this will give me a chance to run more of those types of games because these take a lot of work and a lot of effort to prepare. And because of the way that the campaign is structured, I get to have more players in this group. I get to spend more time with friends and family that I care about. And if you're watching this, there's a pretty good chance that you're one of those people. So when it comes to this game, Godbound, and this format of the West Marches, of course, there is no thing called the West Marches in this setting. Players are going to be centered in this place called Hadiya, right here. It should come up in the video. And that's the place that players are going to return to each session. Now, I have set up some mechanics so that other bases and other forts can be built that will allow other options for starting points and for shortening travel that we can get into in actual play. And in between sessions, I'm going to be running this world where there are going to be, probably like 20 or so different factions that are all competing, trying to do their own plans in ways that will interfere with or help or be neutral towards the players and their goals. So logistically, if players are running their own schedule, how are they going to do that? So if you're in the Discord, you'll see in the pinned comments, the pinned messages, which you can click on at the top of the screen, one of them is going to be the scheduling sheet. Now, I might add more pinned comments over time, so you might have to scroll down to find it, but it'll always be in the pinned comments. And this is the maybe slightly more boring part where I explain the mechanics of how this works. It's really important that you understand how I'm handling scheduling in this game. So if you'll please bear with me and deal with the slight boredom, I'm going to go into detail on this. Okay, so this is the player's sign-up sheet. And first things first, obviously we're playing on, at a minimum, of 2 different continents and 3 different time zones, which is a logistical struggle. So please help me remember daylight savings time, and please let me know if I should add other time zones that I've not accounted for here, because I'm happy to do both. And I'll do my best to manage things like daylight savings on my own, but it'll be helpful if other people are backing me up on it. Okay, so here on the left, what you'll see is several rows. Okay, so the first one is date, and what I'm going to be doing in this row is listing the next 10 days that I have availability to run a game, and which I still have time to prepare for a game if a session were to be planned. Okay. And then in each box, each set of 2 rows is going to be what the start time would be for that game. Okay, and what I'm doing is offering a window for the start time. So for example, here in the UK, on Saturday, May 6th, I'm setting a start time at the earliest of 1700, which is 5 p.m., and a start time at the latest at 2000, which is 8 p.m. Okay? And what that means is when the players schedule the game, they will select what time the session is going to start at some point between those 2 times, and then plan for a 3 to 4 hour session of play to start from that start time. So this just is there to give flexibility to players, just in case, for example, somebody has work, right, or doesn't want to start play at 10 a.m. They prefer to start playing at noon, right? And so what you're going to do in the Discord is decide on a goal together with a group of players, and then put your names on the day that you're deciding to play, and then write the start time as sometime between that window. And you guys will decide what that start time is based on your needs. And then down here, I have provided a helpful military time chart conversion table for those who need it. Okay, so just once again, you'll pick a start time, expect 3 to 4 hours of play. You'll list who's playing on that specific day, and I, of course, will be keeping an eye open on the Discord if you have questions, or if you, or just so I know what you guys are wanting to do. And I'll ask follow-up questions as that happens, because I'm sure that getting more information will always be helpful. Okay, so that's the logistics of it, and I think it looks complicated at first blush, but I think it's actually pretty simple. So once we do it a few times, I think people will get used to it. Okay, so the normal operation is that we'll play sessions. In between, y'all will talk about what happened, come up with new ideas, and eventually propose a new session, recruit players into your group, and set something up. And when it comes to group size, I am pretty ambivalent to how big groups are. So I would hope that the norm is between 3 and 5 players. But if you have a specific reason why 2 or 1 player session would be appropriate, I am down for that. Okay, so I'm more than happy to GM those styles of sessions, given particular context, or given that it's not super common. And I think that can be really fun, actually, to have really small groups sometimes. And then, of course, I think standard norms apply about not being a dick. If you're playing so often that other people aren't getting a chance to play, that might be a problem. So, if you've played the last 3 sessions, consider taking a step back and letting some other people take the initiative to play. And, if no one does, then definitely hop on, right? So pretty simple, pretty easy. And I think it'll allow for those sorts of new styles of play that I was talking about. Now, currently, I doubt that you have a super concrete goal in mind for your character, because you don't know that much about the world. You have to know what you're acting upon in order to take action. And so for the rest of the presentation, I'm just going to briefly describe 4 possible missions. Okay, and I would like for y'all to take the initiative right away. Okay, and what I mean by that is I'm going to describe these 4 missions. I want y'all to figure it out in the Discord. Which missions do we want to do? And go ahead and plan. And what I'm really hoping for, it would be best, is if we could have 2 sessions on the first Saturday and Sunday that I have open, so that most of the players will get a chance to play in that first weekend, and then we can roll from there on setting new goals, pursuing your own interests, and so on and so forth. So the first mission is titled The Long Road. Okay, so my head is covering it, but Hadiya is right under my face. And in this mission, Apostle Esha has asked the Pantheon to help Hadiya make contact with Adal. Okay, and Adal is one of the few human settlements left with a relatively large population. Most cities after the cataclysm did not maintain their population. So Adal has a pretty decent sized population, and Hadiya wants to build a connection. And so players are going to travel the long distance to Adal, and that's going to be most of the campaign, or most of the session is actually doing the travel. And then connect diplomatically to the government of Adal and either build a camp or a fort there, which I'll explain the mechanics if anyone decides to pick this one. But having a base camp or fort there will mean that the Pantheon can start all the way here on the coast during any session. So for any mission that's going to happen on this side of the mountains, that might make it a lot easier and faster to access different locations, because travel can be very resource intensive, especially long journeys. And so having more base camps and forts set up across the continent would be really helpful. Okay. The next one is called Monster Rancher. A local village, which usually has supplied food for Hadiya, has come under assault by an uncreated antagonist. Uncreated are the monsters which have invaded this setting after the cataclysm. If nobody takes care of this problem, villagers are going to continue to die, and food supplies may run low. So this session would be a good choice if either you are a fan of D&D already and love to do combats, or if you're feeling a little bit unconfident in your D&D knowledge, where this can be a good tutorial or practice for you to try out the combat. And it would be great to have a mix of veterans and new players here to take a shot at doing the fight. Okay, mission 3 is titled The Name of the Rose. I'm just going to read the text here. In the mountains near Hadiya, an abbey called the Skyward stands visible from afar. Started by a heretical group called the Daughters of Uriel, the tower was once meant to be built to reach heaven in defiance of those who claimed the creator had left his throne. Now, that project has since not worked out. It turns out that building the Tower of Babel is almost impossible. And so they didn't actually make that much progress on it, but it's become a really major religious center for people who believe in the creator and disagree with the Unitarian Church's position that God has abandoned the world. Now, after the Night Roads were opened, ecumenical efforts were made to develop the relationship between Patriarch Isaac's church and the Abbey. Recently, there was a failed assassination attempt upon the life of Abbess Kalia. Isaac has asked the Pantheon for a personal favor of the Godbound to go to the Skyward and investigate and prevent future attacks. So this will be more of an investigation-oriented mission. You'll spend time with the nuns of the Skyward in an attempt to figure out who made the assassination attempt and why, and how you should handle it. And so you'll get a little bit more of that style of drama if you're interested in this mission. And then fourth, a good old-fashioned dungeon crawl. The store of sacred relics used to fuel Isaac's ritual is starting to run low. The Pantheon will regularly have to provide new sources of magical energy or else risk the end of the ritual and potentially the death of Isaac. Players can start this process now by investigating the Seclusium of Orphony of the Three Visions, a sorceress who has since disappeared, who certainly had some artifacts in her possession. So this will be that style of D&D that is most stereotypical. You'll go to the dungeon, you'll explore the tower, you'll see what's going on, you'll probably run into some traps, that style of good old-fashioned D&D. So in summary, West March is an RPG style which empowers both players and GMs to tell an interesting story by really putting a lot more agency in the hand of the players. When it comes to Godbound and Hadiya, I've provided 4 potential options to help people of Hadiya and their allies. Please discuss amongst yourselves which game you'd like to play. And then finally, I'm just going to talk a little bit about an info session that I'm going to be running. I'm just going to be on Discord in the audio and probably have video on too, in case anyone has questions about anything about the game. If you want help building a character, if you want to bounce ideas off, if you don't understand the rules, I'll cover all of that stuff as needed, and I'm more than happy to walk through, especially character creation. It can be a lot easier if you're doing it with the GM right there. So that'll be a good opportunity for you. Now, if you have a scheduling conflict that doesn't work for you, I am more than happy to schedule another time with you to talk live if that is better or easier for you. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and it might help break the ice if you show up at this one, though. If we're all here together, or a decent number of us are here together, that would be, I think, a good move. And so the times are listed here. So if you're in the Mountain West, especially Utah, it'll start at noon. If you're in Missouri, it's going to start at 1 p.m. Okay, so I'm going to end this with some best practices. I'd like y'all to keep these in mind, because I want this campaign to be a success. I want this to be a blast for everybody involved. And these are some of the things that I think would be helpful from you to create that. And in a lot of ways, I'm going to be oriented towards these same things. Okay, so the first thing is to be assertive, right? So some of y'all are probably going to be more assertive, and some of you less. Some people are going to have ideas for goals after every single session. Some of you might only have those ideas once a month or every couple of months. But when you've got a cool idea, pitch it to the group. Plan sessions like change the world. Be a creative force in this grim, dark setting. Like, I want to see y'all, push forward and express the really unique forms of agency that Godbound gives the players. In other RPGs, you don't get this sort of power to make dramatic changes to the way that the world works in the same way. And in that way, I also, would like to see you expand your list of verbs. Like, let's do lots of different types of adventures, lots of different types of missions. Exploring, negotiating, raiding, stealing, assisting. There's so many tools in the Godbound toolbox, and I would love to see as many of those get used as possible. Please, 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 communicate with other players, engage with them. Ask questions about previous sessions, ask questions about future sessions, what people's plans are, and share your own thoughts and share your experiences from each session. Consider tracking locations on the map. I'll provide a baseline map that people can use. Hello, my love.
Hello.
I'm just recording a video for the Discord.
Oh. Can you cut this part out?
Do you want me to? No, I can't. You can come say hi, though.
Hello, everyone.
Celeste just got home from work.
I brought a gift. Oh, you can't quite see it.
Oh, yeah, it's set to blur out other things.
Fine, it's hot chocolate.
She brought hot chocolate. That's very exciting.
It's empty.
Oh, it's empty. That's less exciting.
I brought you a jar.
All right, it's been a roller coaster here. I've mentioned this in the pitch document that I think the orientation for the player characters is to make the setting of Oncolia a sincerely better place. And so always, if you don't have a goal in mind and you need one, you can always ask yourself, what sort of problems are in this world right now, and what can I do to alleviate that? Working as a team, working collaboratively, I think will make the game more fun. Each Godbound has access to 3 different divine words, but one party has access to 15. Right, so there is so much more flexibility that you get with all those different powers and abilities to pursue interesting goals. I am a big fan of sharing music, sharing pictures that inspire you, things that look like your character or remind you of a particular mission or a setting or a theme that you have covered or want to cover in the game. That sort of stuff really brings a lot of inspiration to play. And so I'd really love to see everybody think about that sort of stuff. What's your character's theme song? That's something I always try and do and think about. And then please let me know if you're running into trouble. right? And that trouble can be a lot of things. You might disagree with something that I said in this presentation. Please message me and challenge me. You might not feel like you have that much direction, or you might be confused about some aspect of the game. I know that this is super complicated, and I'm already this is like a 25-minute video. So I know that like there's a lot of information here, and so please reach out and talk with me. And that's really all. I think that with all those things in mind, with those logistics taken care of, I think we'll have a really great campaign, and I'm really grateful for you taking the time to watch this and to sort these sorts of things out. So,
bye everyone.
Thanks, guys.